Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Welcome back to the Illuminating Catholics podcast. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese of Sioux City. Our co-host, Carmen Bauer, Director of the Faith Formation Office, is not able to join us today, but I promise she will be back for the next episode. And we both offer our thanks to all of you for joining us. We just recently noted that we are over 15,000 downloads for the podcast. So thank you so much for listening. And we have a special treat for you today. You may have heard him at noon on Siouxland Catholic Radio in the Sioux City area or Iowa Catholic Radio in the Lakes region with his EWTN show, The Doctor Is In. Yes, we have Dr. Ray Gaurendi, I'm so sorry, as our guest today. Dr. Ray is also on EWTN television with his show Living Right with Dr. Ray. He is a Catholic clinical psychologist, author, and speaker known for his common sense approach and strong spiritual guidance to help build successful marriages and families. And he will be our keynote speaker for the March 21st Diocesan Men's Conference. So welcome, Dr. Ray, to the Illuminating Catholics podcast.
Hey, Dawn, how are you?
I am just marvelous. And how are you today?
Nothing gaining on me. I know of.
Good. So my first question is, how do you do it all? I was reading all that and like, my goodness gracious.
Oh, there's a secret to it. You can't worry about doing it very well. If you start worrying about quality, it really slows you down.
Oh, I'm not too worried about your quality, but yeah, you're busy, and so that's why we're so fortunate that we were able to get you for the men's conference and get you for the show. And I know you were here about 3.5 years ago as the speaker for the Siouxland Catholic Radio fundraiser, and people were very excited to see you there. And now we kind of get to have you in a different context in March, so we're looking forward to that. Now, for someone that might need a refresher or maybe for some reason are unfamiliar with you and your work, I would love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background and your family.
I am a clinical psychologist, vernacularly known as a shrink. I've been shrinking for over 40 years. I used to be like 6'9", but I'm smaller now. That's what I do professionally, and that's what I did heavily the first maybe 15 years of my career, 20 years of my career. I sat in an office, and I saw people 12 hours a day, and my brain got fried out, and I decided, well, let's see what happens if I start doing some public speaking. I used to entertain in nightclubs. I used to be a vocalist and an organ player, so
Wow.
I kind of had this flair for crowds. So the speaking kicked in. Then I started writing books, and my wife accused me the other night. She said, "Ray, you need to get more into books." And I said, "Well, honey," she says, "when was the last book?" I said, "Well, okay, last week, in one day, I finished a 212-page book, and that's a lot of coloring. That is a lot of coloring, and hand was kind of sore there, but." So I guess the point is I've been fortunate enough to do a bunch of things related to psychology, but I still see people professionally.
That's kind of exciting that you're able to fit all that in somehow. And we know you have a large family, a couple of kids there.
10 kids. Kind of all kids are adopted. All the kids are adopted, and people say, well, "How is it that you kept adopting children?" I said, "Well, it's kind of like eating potato chips. I mean, you always think you can eat one more till you puke, and that's kind of sort of what happens there." So I have 5 boys and 5 estrogen Americans in the children. At one point, they were all under 12. So
oh my
12,
goodness.
11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2 baby. And that was a period of time where I seldom went home. I UPS'd her things. I said, "I hope you're doing well, honey. I'm here if you need me. I'm at the hotel. Give me a call. Let me say hi to the kids."
I would just have to say you and your wife have lots of energy.
Drugs, heavy drugs. Yeah, yeah.
So obviously family is very important to you in your personal life, and have a beautiful family of your own. So for our listeners, how do strong family values affect both your clinical work that you still do and all the work that you do in various types of media and writing the books and so forth?
I was educated in a secular college, and I didn't hear much about religion. As a matter of fact, we were told leave values and faith out of your therapy, which is ridiculous. Because first of all, most people who come in have some faith worldview. Secondly, if you even ask about it, it's going to happen. So you can't ignore it. Third, many people have had bad experiences with therapists who do not respect their deepest held moral beliefs. I've had people in my office say the last therapist we went to told us to get a divorce. We don't want to get a divorce. We want to make it work. We're Catholic. The therapist kept pushing on us. You need to get out. You need to be free. You need to be at peace. You need to be your own person. Didn't respect where the people were coming from. So that's the biggest thing. I think you have to respect the person's moral value system. And unfortunately, many people of faith are finding more and more that in counseling settings, they're not getting that kind of respect. They're viewed as either out of touch, neurotic. Small example. If a parent says, I do not want my 13-year-old to have a smartphone, there's a good chance if that parent goes to a therapist, the therapist is going to advise her or him, well, this is how they communicate, and this is what you need to do, and she's going to have trouble with social connections, and she's going to be resentful and deceptive, and you're going to have a relationship that's going to be fragmented. And the therapist is going to tell them all these horrible things that are going to happen if they stand strong as a parent. And so a lot of my work right now is getting people, and I'm going to be talking to the guys at the conference, is getting people to stand strong, confidently against a culture no longer on their side. It's that straightforward.
I totally believe that. We were just talking about that in the office the other day, and I think you had made that comment to Renee Webb in her story that the secular culture isn't supporting Catholic families, Catholic relationships. So how has your own personal Catholic faith guided you through your personal and professional life?
Oh, I left the church in my 30s. I figured God's God, Jesus is Jesus. Hey, I'll check out a non-denominational. They got more comfortable seats. They got bigger screens. It's kind of cool. The guy's a good preacher. He talks for 40 minutes, but he tells a lot of jokes, and he's got some good stuff in there. And he tries to stay with Scripture as he understands it. And I drifted out. Dawn, I was what you would call a new atheist. See, the old atheists make logical sense. There is no God, therefore I can do what I want. The new atheists are all over the place. They're in our pews. The new atheist says, there is a God, but he thinks just like me. So I was kind of a new atheist. I was sort of setting my own terms. The deeper I got into the evangelical world, at one point I was attending 3-4 Bible studies a week. I had a prison ministry. I became confused. I became very, very confused. In essence, what is Christianity? What are the moral beliefs? Because they're all different. What are the theological beliefs? One place says you can lose your salvation. Another place says you can't lose your salvation. One place says there's a sanctity of life. The other place says there's not sanctity of life. One place says you have to be baptized. The other place says no, you don't have to be baptized. One place says that white wafer becomes the God of the universe. The other place says no, you're worshiping a cookie. I mean, it's all over the map. And so I looked back at my own upbringing. I was raised Catholic. By the way, little aside here, Dawn. My parish growing up was St. Anthony's in Canton, Ohio. St. Anthony's in Canton, Ohio was where all the Italians went. It was law. If you're Italian, you had to go to St. Anthony's. Was Mother Angelica's parish.
Oh.
That's where Rita Rizzo was raised, had her communion, where I had my communion. My dad went to high school with her in Canton, Ohio, McKinley High School. So, in fact, I looked back at my Catholic upbringing and said, okay, Catholic Church, what do you have to say about all this? And I dove into it. And I think I believe I have two talks for the men. One of them is going to be the logic of being Catholic. What was it about logic, reason, and evidence that brought me back to the Catholic Church? I spent 2, 3, 4, 5 years digging into it. I remember one time I was really kind of getting discontented, frustrated, because I prayed to the Lord. I said, I want to believe, and I want to believe like you want me to believe. And I want to believe in the churches or church that you established. Please. So I made this prayer constantly, and it didn't seem like anything was happening. I was probably at my most confused, lowest point. I didn't leave Christianity, but I didn't know what it was. Now I understand. It's safe to say that God knows me, knows you better than we know ourselves. So he knew what I was going to do. I was going to dive into it intellectually. I started reading church history. I started reading some of the best defenses of the faith. I started looking at, okay, what do you Catholics say about these objections? What is your response to all this? And so over a course of 2 to 4 years, I did all this. I had no idea at the time, Dawn, that I was going to be on Catholic media. I mean, I was in secular media. Okay, I did Oprah and all those shows. Mm-hmm. Catholic media was the farthest thing from my mind. Now, because I'm on Catholic media, when somebody raises those questions, there's a pretty good chance I can say, I wrestled with that one too. And let me tell you what some people a lot smarter than I said about that. And had he not put me through that particular journey, I would have just said, oh, okay, I believe. Well, why do you Catholics pray Hail Marys? Well, because my grandmother did, and my grandmother's really a nice lady, and she prayed Hail Mary, so they're okay. No, I was able to offer more than that.
Then, speaking of the men's conference, we are looking forward to you coming. And I did notice, we were looking at our marketing, that you are marketed above the bishop.
Yeah. No, Dawn, you misunderstand. I'm his lead-in act, okay?
Oh, okay.
I get the Frisbees and the beach balls going.
His warm-up act. And he is originally from Youngstown, Ohio, in case you didn't know. So.
I didn't know that he's from our diocese.
Yes. We stole him not quite a year ago.
Second-round draft pick, huh?
Yeah. He actually yesterday, we're recording in January, but this is coming out in February. Yesterday was his gotcha day when the nuncio called him and said, hey, the Pope has selected you. And so we...
It's always nice to hear what bishops say their reaction was when they were told, how would you like to be a bishop?
And, of course, a lot of them say, is this a joke? Is this one of my Monsignor friends calling me? So, yeah, and I texted him. He was on the road, actually, with my husband. I'm like, hey, today's the day that a year ago. And it's kind of like, hope he doesn't write back and go, it was like the worst day of my life. But no, he said he was glad he's here.
He's going to be at that conference, huh?
He is. But, yeah, you were billed. Your picture's bigger on the advertising than his. But
that picture, that's my first communion picture. They told me update the picture. So I'm gonna use my high school graduation picture.
Excellent. So, one thing I do want to ask your thoughts on, like the last time you were in the diocese, it was more of a mixed audience, males, females, and this time you're speaking just to men. And why is that important to have men speaking to men in a group of men?
There was a survey done probably 20 some years ago, maybe more. And they said if mom and dad take the kids to church, there's about a 70 to 80% chance the kids will be in the church in adulthood. Now, this was a while back, so I don't think the stats are that high, okay? But they're still high. If mom alone takes the kids to church, the chances are 40, 50% that the kids will stay in church. If dad alone takes the kids to church, the chances the kids will be in the church as adults is the same as if both did. So there's something about a father's influence on kids. And we guys, we gotta quit letting the women take over all the leading, dragging us to church, the ones that make us pray the rosary in Aramaic while we kneel on broken glass, levitating. It's easy to let the women do this, and we guys go along for the ride. Well, I think that if we start taking our roles up as manly men, not as the culture accuses us being toxic, which is ridiculous. So when we do that, I'm gonna support the guys. I'm gonna say, hey guys, there's some of the stuff you got to do here, and it usually resonates with the fellas.
That's wonderful, and that leads us to the theme, which I think is also the theme of your first talk with the men. Again, it's March 21st in Lamar's. The theme is standing strong as a man, parent, and grandparent. I don't know if you want to just comment a little bit on what they're going to hear there.
I've used alternate titles on that. I've called it Catholic Men Aren't Wimps. That's one title that I've used for that one.
I like that.
They're going to hear how to back up the women in their lives. They're going to hear how to do little tiny things. I'll just give you a small example. When I was raising the kids, I said my night prayers in bed underneath the covers. The kids didn't know if I was sleeping, saying my prayers, or breathing under there to make it get nice and warm. They didn't know. If I had it to do over again, Dawn, they'd see their old man kneeling right beside the bed, saying his prayers, just to put that image in their lives. Little tiny suggestions like that for the guys. Nothing fancy here, okay, but just things that you can do to show that you're wanting to take some leadership in bringing your family to the faith.
And I can see the guys that resonating with the guys. Practical advice. So, and why, and we talked a little bit earlier about today's culture, why do men need to hear this message in today's culture?
Because the culture, you look at anything in our culture, look at the advertisements, look at the media. Guys are just buffoons. The women are in charge of everything. The women are smarter. The women are stronger. It amazes me, if you got a couple of cops chasing a bad guy, the woman is in high heels. She catches the bad guy while the guy is running behind trying to keep up with her. She throws this 270-pound guy to the ground and in 12 seconds has him cuffed and in the cruiser while the guy's just catching up eating his donut. This is what they do. They have succeeded. Never before have cultures done this. They've succeeded in making guys, hey guys, just shut up, okay? Just shut up. And I always want to say to so many in our culture, you know, that road you're driving on, that was built by guys. That building you're in, that was built by guys. Those cars you're driving, many respects, those were designed by guys. I'm not saying we're better than women. I'm just saying give us our due here. And that's part of what happens. I mean, these guys have been told, and sadly, Dawn, some of them have collapsed. They've said, okay, let the women run things. Let the women do it. You know, we're not capable. It's easy too to be lazy. You know, I'll just sit here and watch 4 hours of football. That's I hit hard. I'm going to swing hard at the guys. But there's a lot of humor, and you can get away with hitting hard if you got a lot of humor. You're
going to do a wonderful job. And again, gotta sign up for this conference, and you can hear more from Dr. Ray on this. So, and we've shared a little bit about both of your talks, and we know the bishop's going to talk, and we've got some priests and a local therapist coming in. It's going to be very good. What do you hope? And you, of course, you only know what you're going to say at the conference. You can't answer for the other breakout speakers. But what do you hope that the 250 some men walk away from after attending this conference?
Most of these guys that are coming to a conference like this or giving up their Saturday are well-meaning faith-seeking guys. These are not dudes that don't have any belief system at all and thought to themselves, yeah, I got nothing to do Saturday. Let me go sit in some Catholic conference and listen to some dudes talk. It's not like that. But what I have found is that even the most faith-filled, faith-seeking guys, they need to know they're not alone. When our Lord sent out the disciples, he sent them out 2 by 2 because he knew if there was just one other person there beside you, you had more strength. And I'm hoping that's what the guys come away with. We're not this helpless minority here. In fact, all cultures have been changed by a determined minority. It's hard to mobilize a majority, but you can mobilize a determined minority, and that's what we want to do with the guys.
That's wonderful. And then also the Knights of Columbus that are co-sponsoring that, and that is a wonderful example of men banding together for good and for service. So I just thought of that as you were talking. That's just some wonderful support systems for the Catholic men in our diocese. Of course, if you don't live in the diocese, you're across the river in Nebraska or South Dakota, you're also welcome to attend. So I just do want to repeat that the conference is Saturday, March 21st at All Saints Parish in Lamars. And I understand there's a contingent of men that go every year. It is their annual event. And I did see a young man that sings in my parish choir, Billy Danners High, and his dad. Last year, I was just kind of walking through, I was covering it, and it was really beautiful to see father and son together at that and encourage fathers and sons to consider. The cost is only $30. The food is fantastic. Today it's 11 degrees. I'm pretty sure it'll be a little warmer on March 21st. And you can register at scdiocese.org/men's conference. We'll put that in the show notes too. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Ray, that I did not ask you about?
Well, you didn't really ask about when I was in the 4th grade and I was fractions champ. You didn't say that, and I distinctly put that in the bio. You neglected it. I'm trying not to take it personally. Now I wasn't fractions champ for the whole room. I was fractions champ for my row.
Excellent.
The whole room was Mary Catherine, Mary Margaret, Mary Grace. They were the champs there, but I was like my row.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
I was told there would be no math in this interview. So it's been really wonderful talking to you about your work, Dr. Ray, and all the different areas that you've touched, families and marriages. And obviously, he's a well-known Catholic clinical psychologist, Dr. Ray. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning so we can learn more about you and what the men can expect at the upcoming conference. If you are not going, like you're a woman, you can listen at noon at those 2 radio stations in our diocese, Siouxland Catholic Radio and Iowa Catholic Radio up by the lakes. And you can hear, I was laughing the other day when you were talking to a woman, I can't remember if it was a boyfriend or a husband, and she was given the spiel, and you stopped her and said, "Do you really believe that?" So yeah, you're kind of a no nonsense,
Mr. Gentle,
no nonsense kind of guy. So thank you so much, Doctor. This is a great way to start our day. Listening to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted.
And we so look forward to seeing you in March. And thanks to all of you for listening to today's Illuminating Catholics and learning more about Dr. Ray, our keynote speaker for the March 21st Men's Conference. New episodes drop each Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts, or the Diocese of Sioux City YouTube channel, or at lumenmedia.org. Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.